back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge. Let's talk horror. Today I am joined by a jack of all trades. I got director, actor, writer, producer, Tory Despres. How you doing today, man?
Good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for coming on. This is so cool. Dude, very busy guy. His acting feature, his first one, 5-piece, is available now on Prime and Tubi, I believe.
Yeah, Amazon Prime and Tubi, yeah.
Yep. And then you're shooting an original supernatural thriller here coming up soon. Is that going to be hoping by the end of this year, right?
Yeah, we're hoping to shoot it by the beginning of next year, actually. It's just difficult because of the COVID situation, obviously.
Loving Death, correct?
Oh, well, I'm hoping to shoot that by the end of this year. Sorry, I have a couple features, but I thought you were talking about the horror film, but the supernatural drama I'm trying to shoot by the end of this year. Okay. It's all about just getting everything organized and pre-production and all that, but yeah, man.
So the horror feature is Invaders. That's what you're hoping to be shooting next year, right?
Yeah, and I'm the writer of both. So I might not be the director of both. I definitely want to be the director of Loving Death, which would be at the end of this year shooting and hopefully come out next year. And then Invaders, I'm really lucky to be having people that are interested in the film on a larger scale because of its commercial value. And as you know, probably with horror films. So yeah, I'm kind of just excited to get my foot through the door with that possibly, and probably just have a writer's credit on that. But yeah.
And you just recently worked with a couple of good friends of mine, Haley and Sydney Nasser and Amber Pauline, on a web series. Very, very excited about that as well. I guess you're kind of the super sexy guy, douchebag that all the girls want.
Yeah, I'm definitely playing up the douche, man. Yeah. Dude, I also wanted to talk to you. You know, I followed you on Instagram, and so the director of 5-piece is Matthew Roth, and he directed Cannibal Collector. I don't know if you watched that but I know you followed his page, and that was his first film, was that movie, and it got re-released on I'm pretty sure Amazon. I don't want to do him wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Amazon Prime. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that if you knew him, but yeah.
It's cool how the horror, something I've learned, I've only been doing this for a couple months now, about 5 months now. The horror community is so tight knit that once you really start to get involved with people, like, it's just, everybody is so kind in the horror community, and it's such a great community to be a part of.
Oh, dude, I completely agree. I really do. It's funny because growing up, I loved horror movies, as I'm sure you did, probably even to a more extent with you. Generally with me, I just love film, but horror movies I do have a special click with. And it's because, like, I do feel, this might be too philosophical or whatever, but I do feel there's like a really deep ethic in connecting to one's shadow. I talk to so many people. You talk about people being nice in the horror film community. And like, I think that has a deep understanding of your dark side, and being able to exercise that and understanding where horror comes from within and an emotional, instinctual level. And, to be able to exercise that. That's why you need to get used to recognizing stereotypes or recognizing these visceral impulses of your own so that you can deal with it and just progress with human rationale, as opposed to, that's why you talk about just going backwards with people being nice in the horror film community. It's like, yeah, these people know, like, they know what it is to be bad. They know what it is to be evil. And everyone has the capability of that. And a lot of people are afraid to even talk about that, but it's so true. And the more you do that, the more you have an understanding and appreciation better for, like, the light there is in life. A lot of people affiliate us horror fans with, like, emo or like darkness, or I don't even know, but like,
which is funny because in high school, my nickname was Emo Kid Kenny.
And it's just like, you embrace it, right? Because it's just like, whatever. Yeah.
And it's so funny because one thing that I've talked about in the last couple episodes of the podcast, it's just my opinion. I feel like horror fans that were horror fans at a very young age are more grounded as they go through life, because growing up, they understand the difference between fantasy and reality. They understand what you're watching on there is not real. There are real consequences to what these people do on there. So for me growing up, I always felt like we gravitated more towards being, in the ground more. Our feet were on the ground more. We weren't, I don't think the kids that watched horror movies and played Mortal Kombat when they were little grew up to be serial killers. I think they're the ones that knew you can't do that stuff because it's fake. It's not real. People get hurt. There are consequences. And we learned that from watching horror movies and playing scary video games. So I totally agree. I think horror is super important on so many different levels.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. There's a couple films like, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood plays a funny cliche on this recently where have you seen it?
No, I have not seen it yet.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, Tarantino definitely makes fun of people that have the idea that violence in films perpetuates violence in real life. And it's absurd. And, true film fans know and understand the romanticization, the fantasization, and how that coincides with the impulses that one may act on.
Right.
So yeah, man, I one's tendency to be grounded, like what you're saying, I feel like at a very young age leans you interested into such subjects, because a lot of people, I don't know, for me, and I don't know if it was for you, but there was a slight taboo about growing up with that. I mean, you were given that nickname. I imagine people, it's because you would talk about probably something and people would be a little bit shell shocked to talk about it.
Horror movies, and I did listen to a whole lot of emo music growing up. I was super into like Penfold, Last Days of April, Mineral, Sunny Day Real Estate, Saves the Day.
Oh yeah, yeah. You're real in it. It's not the surface level. Yeah.
Right, man. It's funny because one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my entire life. We were all drinking at a party one night, and a buddy of mine came up to me, and he was like, "Hey, man, how many emo kids does it take to screw in a light bulb?" I was like, "I don't know, Ian. How many?" And he punched me in the chest. And he was like, "None. They just sit in dark and cry, you pussy." And I was like, I'm going to go screw in a light bulb now.
Yeah. It's like, what the hell?
And it was the best thing ever, he's one of my good friends. And I still to this day talk to him. And we still talk about that time. It was just one of the funniest things that anybody's ever said to me. And
yeah.
You got to be able to, I'm one of those people that there's no line. If you're going to make fun of me and we're going to have fun, let's have fun, man. You can't get offended by every fucking thing someone says. If it's funny, it's funny, no matter what it is.
Yeah. Well, there's a part of the ego that gets attached to, I mean, the best kind of humor is self-deprecating, right?
Yep.
So, if you can't laugh at yourself, then what, I mean, so many people say it's like a cliche at this point. But yeah, man, it's just about having a good time with one another. And once you let go of ego, it's just you can start finally appreciating shared interests and loves,
Yes.
So.
Yes, that's so awesome. But today, sir, we are here to talk about the first horror movie that you ever watched. What got you really into the genre? And the first horror movie that you ever watched was?
The Exorcist, actually. Yeah. Yep.
The Exorcist.
Yeah.
It's funny because this is between The Exorcist and Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
That didn't fall on its own, by the way. The demon did it.
What's that?
The demon made the DVD fall on its own.
Yeah, right. And
yeah.
Here's Pazuzu right here, Eileen Dietz.
You had her on, right?
I did. She was amazing. Yeah. You guys can go watch that episode now. It's already aired by the time this one will be aired. But yeah, she was amazing, man. So kind, such a sweet lady. But what I was going to say, it's so funny because when it comes to The Exorcist, between The Exorcist and Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, these are the two movies I talk about the most. And I say it on almost every time I talk about it, but it can't be understated. The Exorcist was phenomenal on promotion alone. I mean, you had people that were leaving the theaters, people were crying, people were denouncing religion. It really fucked people up. And we will never, I don't think in our lifetimes, be able to experience a movie the way that this movie was experienced when it first came out. And it's the only movie. I grew up in a video store, which is really cool. I got to watch videos whenever I wanted. Something really cool I've never shown on the podcast. I'll show you real quick.
Okay, cool.
This is the actual shirt from Downtown Video the store that we owned.
Oh, that's
I
so
love my
tight.
VCR, and it had our locations on the back in Adrian, Michigan, and Tecumseh,
Oh, that's
Michigan.
so cool. That's so
Yeah.
cool, man.
I got the dad bod now, so it doesn't fit anymore. But man, The Exorcist is the only film in my life growing up that my mother shut off and wouldn't let me finish. When we got to the crucifix part, my mom shut it off. She was like, "Nope, this is too much. I don't want you
When the
watching it."
crucifix would appear in the room.
No, when she was masturbating with the crucifix.
Oh Jesus! Yeah. So, sorry to make you describe it, but yeah.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's a horror movie podcast. If you can't handle me saying the word masturbation, you probably shouldn't be watching anyway. But
yeah.
it's just one of those things where there was always a taboo around it because of that. Like, oh, my mom won't let me watch it, so I have to watch this film. So, how old were you the first time that you watched it?
I want to say I was 7 or 8. I think 7 because I remember around 8 I started watching. That was like Pulp Fiction, Pumpkinhead. I started watching like all of them because once you get introduced, it's like. I think what attracted me most is like what you talked about with being grounded. I rewatched it recently, about maybe 2 months ago, and it's because I heard. Sorry to bring up Tarantino again, but he brought it up in a podcast where he filmed it or he showed it at his Beverly New Cinema, New Beverly Cinema. Geez, and people still got scared to this day. And I think the thing is, it's because of what you said earlier, like that groundedness that it has in it. Like a lot of the film, like the first hour, is all character, all very grounded dialogue. It almost seems like mumblecore. You know what I mean? Like and it reminds me of, and you talked about people leaving the theater. It kind of reminds me of the revolutions of like Blair Witch Project and then Paranormal Activity. And even though those are found footagey, it's that still groundedness with that slight like subversion of, is this real kind of thing. There's a major gap in the horror film community of like that and like Cabin in the Woods, which is like super like meta commentary, comedic, and then like grounded, this is real. In both I love. So there's complete ground. But
Cabin in the Woods is my favorite horror movie to come out in the last 20 years.
Oh, dude, I'm so and like him writing that and then doing The Martian. But like, yeah, I think it's fantastic. I love that movie. I can't stop talking about that movie.
The genius thing about that movie is they gave it the most generic title to where you're like, this is going to be so by the book. But it's actually so deep and so intelligent, and it's I can't. I'm with you. I can't say enough about this film. The cast, it's funny, it's scary, it's meta.
Dude, I went into it cold. Like my friend is a bigger horror film than I am, and he just like saw reviews or something, and we were in college, and he's like, "Hey, let's go watch this movie, Cabin in the Woods." And just off title alone, I'm like, "Oh, is this an Evil Dead ripoff?"
Yeah.
Like. And then I go, and I'm just like, this is amazing. The stereotypes are totally deconstructed and fleshed out. It's just, I love it. But back to The Exorcist, I also think the acting is just, am I allowed to curse? It's just it's so fucking good, dude.
Of fucking course you can swear, bro.
It's so fucking good, dude. Like, because it's so great. Like, when he shows up, I know it's towards the end, but it's just like you're building in the suspense. Like directors nowadays, I feel like don't take advantage of building like the suspense without the jump scares. That really builds in the true grounded horror that I think Exorcist is like unparalleled, because you build up the suspense in the moment that poster shot comes up where he gets out of the taxi and the lights, that everyone knows the shot and the music's playing, you get chills and you're fucking scared. Like you're still frightened, even though it's this music coming from nowhere. Like it's literally the soundtrack of the movie, but it's building into, it's like background because it fits so well.
It's like the clock that's ticking.
Oh yeah, dude.
And then all of a sudden you're just like, the clock is ticking, and we hit it. Boom, you're ready to go. Like you can feel the tension, and then it finally comes, and you're just like, oh, I've been waiting, and it's so amazing.
And it feels claustrophobic too, don't you think? Like I was watching it, and I just felt like, especially when they enter the house, like, and they go up the stairs, it always feels like you can't leave. Like, like even if you wanted to, I don't know why. Like the distance, I guess, with the camera, it was so interesting.
And how it's one of those movies that you could easily make the argument that it's a claustrophobic movie because a lot of it takes place in that one room, and you feel like you can't leave because you can't just leave this demon. You have to fight it. You have to try to save. I mean, because really, what this boils down to, we got to save this little girl's life. That's what this boils down to. I'm a father of 2 beautiful young girls. The thought of that is so scary to me. You know, like, I got a boy too, but you know, the girls.
I got a boy too. He's just.
But you know, the thought of, you know, being that parent in that situation, you know, you watch it as a kid and you're like, oh fuck, I'd just be gone. But now I have little girls, and it's like, I wouldn't leave her side no matter what happened. I'm going to be there begging, take me, you know, just get me instead. You know, this little girl, and that heartbreak that surrounds it as an adult compared to when you're a kid really enhances the movie for me. You know, it's one of those things that watching it as an adult, my heart breaks on top of being scared and being worried. You also have that factor of, I'm one of those people that always puts myself in a film. When I watch a film, I put myself in there. And as an adult, putting myself in that situation, thinking of that being my daughter, it makes this movie 10 times scarier.
Yeah. No, I mean, even, well, the dynamic with the young priest and his mother, because he felt like he wasn't there for her. And, you know, she always being there for him. And then him being selflessly, he had this great character arc, in my opinion. And the way I think he's underrated is how he acted. I feel like, I don't know, is it just me, or do people give him like shit sometimes?
Always.
Like, because Max von Sydow, of course, Max von Sydow's fucking just like, and it's not just because of name recognition either. It's like you see underneath his eyes like how terrified he is, but like how much of a man he is to stand up to this thing. And when it comes down to it, this priest who's pretty afraid and has so much doubt in his life, and I'd argue is like basically like an atheistic priest in a way.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to it, he has such a clear arc of saving selflessly this child. And I think the claustrophobia plays, in fact, to how he feels locked with himself emotionally, where he feels stagnant and hitting a wall. And he needed this to transcend into whatever reality there is for it. Obviously, the like deeper ethic is
reaffirming his religion too. You know, it's reaffirming, you know, if there's evil, there has to be good. You know, if I can see the devil.
It's like that George Clooney from Dusk Till Dawn line, you know, and that's one of my favorite characters, by the way. But where he's like trying to convince Harvey Keitel, you know the scene I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where he's like, you know, if these like evil fucks, these vampires, if there is a hell and they're from it, there is a heaven.
Right.
Like, and that's
you know what? That's like an existential moment, you know?
Well, and people just take it, you know, because it is like kind of fun and just simple dialogue, but really underneath it, that's a deeper ethic, because the most like, you know, talking more psychologically, like the deeper understanding to a lot of life is like suffering is definitely real. Like pain and terrible shit is definitely real. And what a lot of people have doubts with is like, oh, what's the meaning to life? And it's not even that they're questioning that. They're questioning like, what's the positive meaning to life when they ask that question? And like, the only real kind of like rational reason without going to spirituality is to transcend your suffering just for the sake of it, like for the sake of your own. And like, I think that is really interesting when people talk about like, oh, there is a hell, there is evil, because there, you can see that, whether that's like, you know, being a Nazi or, you know, being something in the world that we've seen as evil, there has to be something good then.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And that's absolutely true. You can't have one without the other. It's yin and yang, man. Like if you got one, you have to have the other. If there's light, there's got to be dark. That's just how it is. That's, like I said, yin yang, man. I love that. I love that you feel that way, because I feel the exact same way. So back to The Exorcist. Which scene do you think affected you the most?
What scene affected me the most? I want to say... Sorry, because I there's a scene where the young priest first, when it becomes, he's questioning whether it's real or not. He meets the girl for the first time, and she mentions something kind of subliminal about his mother, and he questions it. I think that's really a deep moment because, of course, the film takes a turn after that, and then he comes in and then shit's flying and stuff.
Yeah.
But, because you can't doubt then. But when that moment, I think that's more to real life, the moment where she says something that's subliminally like had to do with his mother. I forget what it was exactly. You might be better at this, but it was a line that his mother would say, like, or something like that. And he like turned and was like, what? And it like completely went by, and you saw it sit with him. And I think that's really important because I think we're giving signs to how people are in life. And sometimes we choose to ignore them, or we choose to be assertive and embrace them in the moment for what they are.
Sure.
And, and sometimes there's overlooking into that, and there's paranoia, which this movie does a great job at diving into as well, because it's like, oh, is this real? Is this person just going through this thing? I love the whole, like, dealing with the doctors and all that too. But that first moment of doubt, that's like questioning, I find really interesting, because that's when the film's starting to turn slowly. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like in tone. And it's creeping up your spine now. Like you knew it was like at the bottom of your spine and you're starting to get uncomfortable. And then you're like, oh no, like you're starting to feel uncomfortable. So it's probably that. I know there's a lot of cliche moments that I can quote that are great. Even me saying they're cliche, it's terrible because they're just amazing. It's just so many people talk about them. The head turning, when she first walks in, even in peas, it's disturbing. Like, because you're worried and you care about this girl, and she's like, "What's wrong with me?" There's so much empathy there that you can have, even without. I hope to have a daughter someday. I hope to have children someday. But like, just on a human level, I connected with that. I felt, yeah, man. I mean, the movie as a whole affected me so much, but that scene, and the reason I jumped to the crucifix moment when is it Zulu? What's the name of the demon?
Pazuzu.
Yeah, wow, Zulu. Pazuzu. So when the cross shows up and Max von Sydow is like terrified, because that's the moment of like the demon really trying to show like its strength, and that's really like good versus evil really clashing at it at that moment. It's just to the core of everything I kind of love. And the very opening scene, actually, like the kind of like archaeologist kind of like older Indiana Jones feel. There's so many scenes I love, but I'm jumping all over the place.
So we've talked about The Exorcist and how that movie affected you. Now I want to go Scream on you. What's your favorite scary movie? What is your favorite horror movie? Favorite scary movie of all time?
Favorite horror movie. It's funny, we were talking about Cabin in the Woods, and it's like I kind of want to maybe stray from that because we talked about it. So I might want to go for like a second choice. Crap. I'm sorry. I want to say.
It's a hard question.
Yeah. Well, I just watched this horror documentary called In Search for Darkness, and it kind of have you checked it out? It's on Shudder, I think. Oh, it's so good. It's like 4.5 hours long. But I know you'll be interested. Yeah, dude, it goes through all the 80s, and it's fantastic. But I will say, it's funny. My favorite scary movie might be Scream.
I've said it numerous times. Scream is hands down my favorite horror movie franchise of all time.
Yeah.
The weakest entry is 3, and it's still good.
It's still fun. It's still fun. Yeah. So actually, dude, I'm so sorry, man. I actually want to say, and this is just because it hit me at the right moment, it's Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead.
Okay. That's the 03 one?
Yeah, and it's because the DVD commentary has maybe 6 hours of like news footage of like the days of the dead, and I just love that. But so I love that Zach's such a fan, but also the stylistic choices, and there's an argument to be had against running zombies and slow zombies, and I'm all for that. That's why I love Night of the Living Dead so much too. But when I watched that movie in the theater for the first time, I was terrified, but also like the foot shot, like for instance, when her husband turns into a zombie, and she goes into the bathroom and falls, and how that's all shot, and she puts her foot on the rug, and it's like a slow insert, and it's so stylized, Zack Snyder, but like you feel it. And when she goes outside, she sees her neighborhood in chaos, and then the wide shot, and you're seeing the town, and this car crashes into a gas station, and it's just like, and then the music plays, and it's Johnny Cash, and it's just like, you know, or no, Johnny Cash was at the end. Yeah, and then Ving Rhames, and just, oh man, and then I love the guy from Modern Family's in there, and he's like the biggest douchebag. That's how I know him.
Such a douche.
I know him as the douchebag from Dawn of the Dead, and everyone else knows him as like, because that's what he did before Modern Family.
Right.
But yeah,
well, I did a top 10 favorite horror movie remakes on the channel, and that was on there. I won't tell you where, but that was on the list.
Oh, nice, man. Yeah, it just affected me as a filmmaker, I think, the most. And I'll go back and rewatch it for entertainment purposes a lot. While a lot of these classic films I'll watch, you know, it's funny, like I love Nightmare on Elm Street, but I'll probably rewatch Dream Warriors more.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Just because it's like action.
It's got the best cast.
Yeah, it's got the best cast, but like it's different. It's different per franchise, right? Like Friday the 13th is the same thing. Like the original I love, but I love watching the second one. I also love, well, and then, but the only different, Halloween, I think, is the only one where I'm like, Halloween is just fucking incredible. Like, that's the one I was questioning too. And I know I'm talking about basically every horror movie, but when you asked
you'll
me,
probably think I'm crazy, but with Halloween, I think Season of the Witch is the best one.
Dude, it's well, no, I understand. And it's because they went for something different. And it's like, people give it so much like shit. And the Season of the Witch is hilarious to me. Like, I mean, if you have to buy in though, you can't be expecting, if they're going to be going in with the Michael Myers thing, like if you're going in with that, then and you're stubborn about it, then you're done. Like, you have to be somewhat open-minded to the experience. And I think how they advertised it may have been a little bit at fault here. They didn't know what to do with it, I think. But as a movie in a vacuum, I love too.
It was supposed to be, Halloween was supposed to be an anthology series. It was supposed to be a different movie every time. Yeah. But people loved Michael so much, Season of the Witch didn't have a chance. If that movie would have came out as just Season of the Witch, you know, it would have been way better. It would have done so much better. Because it's a fun movie. It's a quirky movie. It's fucking off the wall. They get a piece of fucking Stonehenge and bring it over to America. I mean, it's so goofy.
It's so good.
Awesome, dude.
Oh man, what was, and you know what's funny? I would kind of say the opposite about The Shining sequel. Wow.
Dr. Sleep.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, and it's only because of how audiences have changed. I think marketability, you have to go with The Shining 2, Dr. Sleep. And it's like, I know it's the book, and I know Stephen King loved probably the ending of Dr. Sleep because of how that fixed what he felt was an abomination of the Shining movie.
Right.
I just love that debate. If I can't tell you the number of conversations I have with casual film goers that are like, wait, that was a sequel to The Shining? Like, literally, that's their reaction. And I'm like, that's the problem. If you just see Dr. Sleep and it seems kind of like some weird, like, esoteric horror movie, like with Ewan McGregor, it's like, oh, that seems cool, but I'll get to it when I can. You know, that's the feeling. So, I mean, that's why it has such a good shelf life because, sorry.
No, I love Dr. Sleep. Me
too. I loved it. I loved the conversation too, even though it wasn't played by Jack. Like, I loved the conversation at the bar.
Are you going to take your bub?
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
You know who played him? You know who played Jack in that scene?
I did, and I forgot. So
it was the kid from E.T., man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah, man.
Dude. And it's weird. Like, he looks like he looks like Jack, but he doesn't look like Jack Nicholson. Like, if that makes any sense.
No, he has, because they do a good job. Good directors, I feel like, do a good job of capturing the essence. And I think he captured the essence. But for instance, I like a lot of Jack's Jack is too unique to capture. And I'm glad the director knew that. It seemed really self-aware to cast that part. And I'm pretty sure he approached Jack. They approached Jack, and he was like, "I'm retired,"
Yeah, I'm not doing that. But I'm glad, because he would have looked, they would have to like computer render his face or perfect the way they did it, man. Because look, we're reshooting Jack. We're not reshooting Jack Nicholson. We're reshooting the character, not the actor. And the way they did it was perfect. And you're right, because he's like, Mom, I couldn't even look her in the eyes anymore because of you. And he's like, how about you take a drink? And he's like, don't you care? That was your wife.
Yeah,
I'm just Lloyd the bartender. It was fucking brilliant, man.
It's fucking dark and menacing, and how, I can tell by your passion the underlying thing of handing him a drink, because that's the issue, and the substance abuse and that's the thing with horror movies. Sorry, but I feel like we might be talking a little bit into like an echo chamber here, because people that are gonna be watching this are gonna be horror fans probably, but like the social commentary that's embedded, and like I want to say George A. Romero just started this, like, how
Night
deep
of the Living
the commentary
Dead.
with Night of the Living Dead, with racial social commentary, and also political social commentary. A lot of people want to talk about the racial social commentary because it is so viscerally apparent for the time, especially. But so many films throughout the years, every single campy film usually dives deeper into the commentary. There's a reason these films get made. You can't just write a simple, this girl's going to survive at the end and there's a monster. And no, it's like the reason they get made is they talk with executives that are fans of horror films. And these people know, like, oh, you're trying to have some social commentary here, but doing it through a vessel of entertainment. Because horror films essentially are like comedic, fun, poppy, like zeitgeist, like hitting the senses,
The Shining itself, that whole movie's about addiction.
Oh, that's what it is. That's why I love Dr. Sleep so much too. They didn't abandon that at all. It's funny. I keep rewatching. I don't know if you see on Instagram, Jack like preparing for the scene, and Shelley Duvall is just like kind of like, all right, And even like the second AD walks by and Jack's waving the axe, and the second AD is like, oh, okay.
We know that they were going to use a prop door and a prop axe for that scene, but since Jack Nicholson had firefighter training, they used a real axe and a real door in that scene.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah.
Well, I knew that they did. I didn't know that was the reasoning. Yeah,
because he had that firefighter training, and he was like, I can do this. I've done this before. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, man.
But I always end these with the same question. I got to go back to The Exorcist. We always end it with the skull count. 0 being the worst, 5 being the best. Where would you rank The Exorcist on a scale of 0 to 5 skulls?
Well, 5. So 5 is the best. So I would say, since it's not my favorite horror film, I would say it's a 4.9. You know what I'm saying? Because I understand if someone says, "Oh, this is the best horror movie," I'm like, "Hey, I completely get it." It's just for me, it's not. So I don't know. Maybe if art is slightly objective in a way, I might say that's the best. So it might be a 5. And sorry for the overcomplication. I just want to qualify.
No, it's fine. I want this to be dead. I want it to be real. That's what I hope for with these.
Yeah. So I would probably give it a 5 as best. But I have emotional urges to plead for other cases, I would say.
Sure.
So probably 5 skulls. I know that's
such a fair ranking.
Yeah.
Well, don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions. Everybody else, thank you so much for watching. We're about 30 episodes away from our 100th episode, so I'm so excited about that. I'm so excited for everybody that's been coming on. This means so much to me, you guys, and I want to keep doing this for the rest of my life. So thank you to you, Tory, for coming on. This means the world to me. Everybody else, keep talking horror. Stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.